We're working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. We're moving to the next stage of this pandemic, and as the world resets to the new normal, we find ourselves seeking the right balance between health and livelihood, constantly adjusting the boundaries between liberty and responsibility. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. First, the second phase of the government's National Action Plan, or NAP, to combat the coronavirus pandemic focuses on balancing Filipinos' health and the gradual reboot of the economy, according to the National Action Plan on COVID-19 Chief Implementer Secretary Carlito Galvez. Let's take a listen.
NAP Phase 2 is based on the hammer and dance theory, wherein the government shall continue to contain the spread of the virus through its zoning and containment strategy or targeted lockdown, while slowly rebuilding our economy. Ito po ay ginagawa po natin para magkaroon po ng immediate response para po ang ating mga nagkakaroon na mga lugar na mga new cases ay ating pong makaagad pong maagapan. We will also continue to strictly implement the health and safety standards across all quarantine classification, particularly also sa ating mga private sectors at mga workers. We already had more or less 10 million testing kits available for that. And we are now increasing our testing capacity, now more than 50,000, and we were able to test 27,000 a day.
Secretary Galvez, also the presidential peace advisor, said given the implementation of lockdowns for more than 100 days due to the pandemic, which grounded economic activities to a halt, there's also a need to rebuild and recover the country's economy. Secretary Galvez said local government units were tasked to impose granular targeted lockdowns if necessary to further contain the transmission of the virus within their areas. He meanwhile also said that the government is strengthening the expansion of the country's actual testing capacity. He said the government has established expanded testing protocols so that we can test as much as 10% of the people. Secretary Galvez urged the public to keep safe against the risks of virus infections. Meanwhile, over 92,000 overseas Filipino who returned to the country amid the pandemic or the coronavirus disease are now back in their provinces, according to Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana. Let's listen in.
To the new normal. As of July 16, 87 na ngayon ang ating testing laboratories at nasa mahigit 50,000 na kada araw ang ating kakayahang mag-testing. Halos 2 milyong personal protective equipment at libu-libong PCR kits na rin ang ating naipamahagi sa mga ospital at ibang frontliners. Ang Philippine Air Force at Philippine Navy ay nagamit sa paghakot ng mga medical supplies mula sa ibang bansa. Nagamit din ng Philippine Air Force, Philippine Navy at Philippine Coast Guard sa paghatid ng mga dumadating na mga overseas Filipinos at locally stranded individuals sa kanilang lalawigan.
He also said the Department of Foreign Affairs has implemented massive efforts to bring home displaced and stranded Filipinos abroad due to the pandemic, while those who severely affected were provided with financial and legal assistance. Meanwhile, he also said the government continues to ramp up response efforts to the health crisis. He added that the country has 50 mega COVID treatment and monitoring facilities and more than 7,000 local isolation and general treatment facilities nationwide. Secretary Lorenzana said these efforts are anchored on the test, treat, and trace management system, which is focused on prevention, detection, isolation, treatment, and reintegration, and eventual adaptation or adaptation to the new normal. He meanwhile said that assets of the Armed Forces of the Philippines have transported 2 million pounds of medical supplies and essential cargo locally and even abroad. The Philippine Army meanwhile provided free rides in Metro Manila. In Maldives, Malay residents can now visit the islands for up to 5 days without a mandatory quarantine period. Joining us live from the beautiful islands of Maldives is Steffi Dewan. Hello, Steffi.
Hi, Alma. Yes, the Health Protection Agency, or HPA, has, beginning Wednesday, permitted residents in the capital city of Malé to visit other islands for a maximum of 5 days without a mandatory quarantine period, provided that individuals travel for essential purposes or the provision of services. Individuals with clearance to forego the standard 14-day quarantine period include employees of media outlets, bank and health facilities, as well as utility service providers such as water supply and electricity, maintenance workers, and individuals employed in government-sponsored projects or private sector initiatives can also travel for work-related purposes. According to HPA, workers must submit an application before traveling and can only depart after receiving clearance. Prior to sending workers to the other islands, employers are required to ensure that staff do not exhibit any symptoms of COVID-19. If authorities have collected samples from a worker, the individual is not permitted to travel before receiving the test results. HPA urged all individuals traveling under these permits to practice social distancing and adhere to the agency's guidelines during their work. Although the government has lifted the ban on inter-island travel restrictions on movement between the region, remain in place due to the continued spread of COVID-19 in the capital. As one of the most densely populated cities in the world, Maldives' capital Malé recorded a significant increase in COVID-19 cases in the first weeks following the first confirmed local transmission on April 15. Following a sustained increase in recoveries, the state initiated efforts to steer the country towards a new normal. A part of a phased easing of lockdown restrictions across the Greater Malé region, unrestricted movements was permitted from June 15 onwards, while government offices and businesses including shops, cafes, and restaurants restarted services on July 1st. Authorities reopened Maldives' borders for tourism on July 15. The number of COVID-19 cases has since increased with the total amount of recovered patients falling from its peak 86 to 78%. Maldives presently records a total number of positive cases at 3,044 with 617 active cases. Till date, the country recorded 2,397 recoveries and 15 fatalities. And that's the latest news for today. Back to you, Alma.
All right, thank you, Steffi, for your updates there in the beautiful islands of Maldives. Looking forward for more. Thank you, Steffi.
Thank you so much, Alma, for from Maldives. Steffi Juan, and we live in interesting times.
And let's get the latest situation in Malaysia. Joining us live is Gail Aldos. Hello, Gail.
Hello, Alma. Here is the latest news in Malaysia. A total of 16 new COVID-19 cases were recorded yesterday and half are imported cases, said Health Director General Datuk Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah. He said this brings the cumulative figure of cases to 8,831, including 142 active cases with infectivity. However, no fatalities were reported yesterday, keeping the death toll at 123, he said in a statement. He said of the 16 new cases, 8 are imported cases who were infected overseas, involving 4 Malaysians and 4 non-citizens who are permanent residents or allowed to enter Malaysia for work purposes. The 8 people returned or came from India, Russia, Saudi Arabia, China, Indonesia, and Korea. He said among the 8 local transmissions, 7 are Malaysians, while 1 case involved a foreigner from pre-departure screening case who is asymptomatic and has been admitted to Sungai Buloh Hospital. On the 7 local transmission cases involving Malaysians, Dr. Nur Hisham said all of them were detected in Sarawak, with 3 cases from the Sutong cluster. He said 1 case involved the Sentosa cluster and another one from the Melbourne person under investigation cluster. There was one case of close contact screening, case 8695, and another case involved school screening who was asymptomatic and had been admitted to the Sarawak General Hospital, explained by Dr. Nur Hisham. Meanwhile, he said 4 cases had recovered and were discharged yesterday, bringing the cumulative number for recoveries to 8,566, or 96.9% of the total number of cases. He added to date, only 5 positive cases are still being treated in the intensive care unit, with 1 requiring ventilator support. In another news, Alma, there is a decline in the level of compliance by individuals and business premises with standard operating procedures under the Recovery Movement Control Order based on police monitoring over the past 3 days. Bukit Aman Crime Prevention and Community Safety Department Director Datuk Zainal Abidin Kasim said the situation was somewhat disturbing as it could lead to a spike in COVID-19 cases if people continue to not to adhere to SOPs set by the government. He said there are 8 locations being monitored. Among them are eatery premises, restaurants, mosques, places of worship, bus stations, LRT, public transport vehicles, celebrations, schools, and universities. He told a press conference yesterday that in monitoring compliance, it was found that some eateries, restaurants, bistros, and bars do not comply with social distancing at all. Apart from that, Zainal Abidin said police also found that more and more people did not comply with SOPs at recreational areas, including gathering in large areas without regard to the practice of social distancing and allowing children to mingle together without control. In this regard, he said the police would continue to take stern action by imposing 1,000 ringgit compound on any individual business premises that failed to adhere yesterday. He said they will not be giving any advice or warnings. Stern action will continue to be taken. The public can lodge complaints with the police if they come anyone not complying with the SOPs. He gave an example: if at a party, event people find that waiters are not available, there is no social distancing, the public must inform them to stop the event. Meanwhile, Zainal Abidin also made a surprise inspection on SOP compliance during the RMCO at the Nasikanda restaurant and shopping mall in Amanjaya. During the inspection, the Nasikanda restaurant was issued a 1,000 ringgit compound for violating the SOP, among which there was no record of customers' body temperatures being taken and no specific entrance and exit for customers. Back to you, Alma.
All right, thank you very much for your updates there. Thank you, EBC Kuala Lumpur Bureau. You stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you, Alma. Reporting live from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, this is Gail Aldos. We live in interesting times.
All right, some schools will reopen next month. Let's get that update from Princess Kalamanan from our EBC Cambodia Bureau. Hello, Princess.
Yes, Alma, hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So here are the latest dates from Phnom Penh, Cambodia. The Council of Ministers on Monday gave the green light to the Ministry of Education to reopen 20 high safety standard schools next month after their closures amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Virak Cheet, the Secretary of State at the Council of Ministers, sent a letter on Monday to Education Minister Hang Chon Naron saying the government permitted the Ministry of Education to reopen 20 high safety standards schools in Phnom Penh, Siem Reap, and Battambang City. Ministry spokesman Ross Savicha said yesterday the ministry will sign the Memorandum of Understanding with those schools to ensure they follow the health measures set by the Health Ministry and the World Health Organization. Savicha said schools must keep their environment clean, especially classrooms, in order to keep students safe and ensure they will be sprayed with disinfectant regularly. He added that teachers will undergo thermal scanning before being allowed to enter the classroom. If any schools fail to comply with the ministry's guidelines, they will be issued a warning letter and will be temporarily suspended, he added. Savicha declined to disclose the names of the schools. The administration is finalizing the reopening plans to incorporate new hygiene requirements and social distancing specifications. Further school reopening plans and details will be shared with the school community shortly. Trai Roth said she had 2 daughters studying in a private school in Phnom Penh. but she was unaware of their school will reopen next month. I really want my daughters to return to school as soon as possible because e-learning is not easy for students. They want to study in class with friends, she said. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Princess, for your updates there in Cambodia. You stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you.
Thank you to Alma and this is Najika Lamaran, live reporting from Phnom Cambodia.
Okay, joining us live from Bangkok, Thailand is Faye Barte. Faye, hello.
Good afternoon, Alma, and good afternoon to all the viewers. The update from Thailand is the emergency decree has been extended. The government on Thursday reported 8 new cases of, for the emergency decree, the Center for COVID-19 Situation Administration, or the CCSA, on Wednesday approved the extension of the emergency decree for another month until August 31. The current ban on public gatherings will, however, be lifted as soon as the extension takes place. The CCSA spokesman said the extension was necessary because although the coronavirus was still spreading worldwide, Thailand was allowing in foreign visitors and easing lockdowns on business and activities that pose a high risk of disease transmission. With regards with the Rayong province incidents, and there is an investigation of the incidents there. And from July 14 up to July 21, they conducted COVID-19 testing for like 6,843 persons. And all of this, they were tested negative. The last update here in Thailand, Alma, there are 8 new cases of coronavirus disease among quarantined returnees. Back to you, Alma.
Right. Thank you very much, Faye, for your updates there in Thailand. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Likewise, Alma. This is Faye Barter reporting live from Bangkok, Thailand Bureau, and we live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, in Indonesia, President Joko Widodo has urged Padjadjaran University's medical school research team in West Java to make the Sinovac COVID-19 vaccine available within 3 months. Now this amid mounting infection rates in the country. The Health Ministry announced 1,882 new confirmed cases on Wednesday, bringing the total number of infections nationwide to 91,751. According to data released by the ministry on Wednesday, 139 more people have died of the disease, a total of 4,459 now. And the total number of recovered patients has also increased to 50,255. The virus has spread to all of the country's 34 provinces. Now, according to Jakarta Post, Padjadjaran University professor Kusnandi Rusmil has said that President Widodo had called on the research team to fast-track the potential vaccine during a private meeting held at the palace in Jakarta. However, he said the team couldn't possibly fulfill the president's request as clinical trials for the vaccine entailed a string of stringent protocols that would otherwise take years to complete under normal circumstances. He went on to say that he expected the vaccine developed by Chinese biopharmaceutical firm Sinovac Biotech in collaboration with state-owned pharmaceutical holding company PT Biopharma to pass phase 3 clinical trials as early as next January with a total of 1,620 samples tested. Biopharma President Director Onesti Basir said the company had planned to distribute 40 million doses of the vaccine per year as soon as the government authorized its widespread usage. The number of novel coronavirus cases worldwide exceeded 15 million on Wednesday, according to a running tally by the U.S.-based Johns Hopkins University. The death toll from the virus is nearing 618,000, with recoveries topping 8.5 million, according to the data. The U.S. remains the worst-hit country with more than 3.91 million infections, while the death toll in the country stands at 142,350, and the country registered more than 1.18 million recoveries to date. Now, Brazil, which has the largest number of COVID-19 cases and deaths in Latin America, is the second highest in infection numbers globally, with more than 2.15 million. The country reported nearly 81,500 pandemic-related fatalities, while the recovery stopped 1.56 million. India, Russia, South Africa, Peru, Mexico, Chile, the UK, and Iran are also among the hardest-hit countries. China, the ground zero of the virus, has registered 85,314 cases, including 4,644 deaths and 80,018 recoveries. And the virus has already spread to 188 countries and regions since late last year. Eagle News will be right back.
Tatawagin ko na ang 5 contestants na papasok sa finals.
Nasa inyong mga kamay ang kanilang kapalaran at 100% ng desisyon ay manggagaling sa inyong boto. Kaya vote na sa pinakamagaling na contestant. Kung ikaw ay Team Angel Nicole Francisco, text TNG Space Angel. Sa palagay mo, Cosmic Angels ang pinakamagaling. Text TNG Space Cosmic.
Sa mga inuman ay kailanan, di ako sumusok sa anumang laban. Kami ang naging manahigit, kanino man naniniwala sa kababalaghan. Mga pamahin hanggang patong bayan, sa pangungulila ay musika naman. Pinakamalakas na panlaban, pag-ibig para sa mga kabataan. Di naiya sa tamang paraan, para asin ko ng bawat kabataan. Bawat kabataan, Pilipinas ating bayan.
Kung Power Duo ang nagpahanga sa'yo, text TNG Space Power. Support na kung napahanga ka ni Jonah Chris Pangilio. Text TNG Space Jonah Chris. ngayon at the best ba para sa'yo si Edrain Oclarino? Text TNG space Edrain. Boto na at isend sa 0922-110-1400. Isang boto kada isang mobile number. Make sure na tama ang keyword para valid ang boto mo. Pwede rin kayong bumoto via online. Pumunta lang sa Tagisan ng Galing channel sa YouTube. Hanapin ang performance ng paborito niyong contestant. Panuurin, i-like at i-share. 25% ang text votes, 25% ang views, 25% ang like at 25% ang share. Kaya naman lahat ng boto, views, like at shares nyo ay mahalaga. So vote now! At sabay-sabay nating abangan kung sino ang tatanghaling ultimate grand winner sa Tagisan ng Galing.
A Malaysian judge overturned a decision to cane 27 Rohingya refugees for entering the country illegally and slammed the inhumane sentence, according to the lawyer, following an outcry from activists. The men arrived in Malaysia by boat in April after a treacherous voyage, but were then jailed and then sentenced to 3 strokes of the cane each. Muslim-majority Malaysia is a favored destination for Rohingya who face persecution in their mostly Buddhist homeland of Myanmar. But authorities have in recent months been trying to stop them from entering over coronavirus fears. A judge of the High Court in the northern city of Alor Setar threw out the caning sentence handed down by a lower court following an appeal, according to lawyer Colin Andrew. Mr. Andrew said his reasons included that, quote, these persons are Rohingya refugees who are in need of international protection due to the persecution faced by them. The lawyer added that he also ruled it was, quote, inhumane to impose a sentence of whipping on the men who were not habitual offenders and had not committed acts of violence. Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch had called on authorities not to go ahead with the punishment. A Malaysian court ordered former Prime Minister Najib Razak to settle 1.69 billion ringgit or 12.5 billion baht in unpaid taxes over 7 years while he was still in office, according to a report by National Newswire Bernama. Huge sums were looted from the country's sovereign wealth fund and spent on items ranging from high-end real estate to artwork in a globe-spanning fraud allegedly involving Najib and his inner circle. The former prime minister lost power in 2018 elections in large part due to the accusations of his involvement, and he is fronting several trials over the controversy, but he denies all wrongdoing. Najib, now in his ruling, High Court Judge Ahmad Bache said former premiers are not exempt from paying tax and that Najib must pay his debt to the government, according to the Bernama report. Tax authorities filed the suit last June to recover unpaid taxes accumulated by Najib between 2011 and 2017, plus penalties plus interest. In other news, Singapore and France signed a mutual legal assistance, securing cooperation in the prevention and the suppression of crime. They signed this during a virtual ceremony on Wednesday. The agreement on mutual legal assistance in criminal matters provides a framework for both countries to make requests for legal assistance in criminal matters of each other. And is Singapore's first mutual legal assistance treaty since 2005. It's also Singapore's first bilateral mutual legal assistance treaty with a country with a civil law system. Singapore's Home Affairs and Law Minister, K. Shanmugam, and France's Minister of Justice and Keeper of the Seals, Eric Dupont-Moretti, attended the virtual signing ceremony. Earlier, they also exchanged views on several topics, including strengthening bilateral legal cooperation and the promotion of Singapore and Paris as investment, arbitration, and legal innovation hubs. The two countries said they looked forward to deeper legal cooperation between their nations. The law enforcement agencies has regular exchanges on counterterrorism, cybercrime, and other issues. In other news, U.S. Defense Secretary Mark Esper plans to visit China for talks on how to improve two-way communications in a crisis as geopolitical tensions between the superpowers rise and concerns mount over a potential South China Sea flashpoint. Last week, the United States formally declared Beijing's pursuit of territory and resources in the South China Sea as illegal, explicitly backing the territorial claims of Southeast Asian countries against China's. It has also downgraded relations with Hong Kong after China implemented a new security law in violation of its promises of autonomy for the territory. On July 2, the U.S. Defense Department criticized Chinese military exercises around the Paracel Islands, saying they further destabilize the situation in an area also claimed by Taiwan and Vietnam. Now, Esper cited China's militarization of contested South China Sea islands, its sinking of a Vietnamese fishing boat, and the harassment of Malaysian oil and gas activities, and its protecting fishing fleets that Indonesia says are illegally poaching also in its waters. China, unsurprisingly, accused the United States of being the destabilizing influence in the region. Pentagon spokesman Jonathan Hoffman said Esper's trip to China is still in the planning stage. Forest loss is continuing globally, but it is also slowing down, even if not nearly enough, according to UN experts on Tuesday. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization, or FAO, the world has lost some 178 million hectares of forest since 1990, an area about the size of Libya. On a more positive note, more than 700 million hectares are in protected areas, and globally, around a fifth of forests have sustainable management plans in place. Let's listen in.
This has a number of new findings, but let me highlight three of them. First of all, the forest area loss and the deforestation are slowing down, which is a great news. But we are still losing 4.7 million hectares per forest. Most of that loss happens in sub-Saharan Africa and in South America, but also in Southeastern Asia, we still lose about 1 million hectares of forest every year. The second is that the area of forest found within legally established protected areas is increasing. And it, in fact, it has now reached 18%. This is good news because that means that the Aichi Biodiversity Target 11 of protecting 17% of terrestrial ecosystems has been met for forests. And finally, the area of forest under sustainable management plans is increasing. The Global Forest Resources Assessment is the most comprehensive assessment of forest resources, their management and uses that exists. It's actually the only one that covers more than 60 different variables altogether. So the Global Forest Resources Assessment is the reference against which all the other forest resource information is being compared, and it is the reference also that is being used to support many international processes, and as, for example, the Rio Conventions, the Convention on Biological Diversity, Convention on Climate Change, and so on and so forth.
Top 10 countries worldwide for average annual net losses of forest area between 2010 and 2020 are Brazil, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Indonesia, Angola, United Republic of Tanzania, Paraguay, Myanmar, Cambodia, Bolivia, and Mozambique. Now, the top 10 countries for average annual net gains in forest area in the same period are China, Australia, India, Chile, Vietnam, Turkey, United States, France, Italy, Romania. Millions of people around the world depend on forests for their food security and livelihoods, but it is also critically important to protect forests by conserving natural resources as they harbor most of the Earth's biodiversity on land and mitigate the effects of climate change, according to FAO. It also noted that forests contain 60,000 different tree species, 80% of all amphibians, 75% of bird species, and 68% of the Earth's mammals. ASEAN in Focus, we'll be right back.
Malaking parte ng pamumuhay namin ang agrikultura. Sa mother side ko, ang kanilang kalakal ay animal husbandry. Sila po ay nag-aalaga ng mga baka. Magmula po sa Pangasinan, napunta po ng Nueva Ecija. Ang father side ko naman po, mula po sa Spain, pagdating nila dito sa Pilipinas, sila po yung tinatawag na uring may lupa. Talagang nabuhay po kami, ibinuhay po sa amin ang agrikultura. Mga mahal kong kababayan, ito po si Robin Padilla, inaanyayahan ko po kayong manood ng Unlad, Kaagapay sa Hanap Buhay. Dito po sa Net 25.
May kaagapay sa hanap buhay.
Alas 8 ng gabi, dito po sa Net 25.
Ikaw ang lahat sa akin, sa may kapal, aking dinadalangin. Dapat pa kitang limutin.
Ibinunyag ni Senador Richard Gordon na ang karamihan sa 12...
Tamang impormasyon.
Sabi ng senador, matindi ang pagkakadismaya ng Pangulo sa mga...
Patas.
Inimok naman ni Guevara ang mga DOJ officials at police na magdiwang.
Wala nang isiningit na pork barrel sa panukalang budget para sa susunod na taon.
We're very confident that this bill will pass.
Tapat.
Batay sa pinakahuling report, nakapasok na sa lalawigan ng Pangasinan ng mga karne ng baboy na kontaminado ng African Swine Fever.
Tim Con walang aaksayang panahon bilang bagong head coach ng Gilas Pilipinas.
Nakuha ni Juan J.M. Omboy ng Trackma Knights ang panalo laban kay Elmerito Penetrado ng Trackma Warriors.
Asuman yung kabuuan ng mga balita
ng Agila. Lunes hanggang Biyernes. Alas 6 hanggang alas 7:30 ng gabi. At Mata ng Agila Weekend. Sabado, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi. Dito sa impilang naghahatid ng mga makabuluhang balita, edutainment, at isyong may kinalaman sa teknolohiya. Net 25.
A giant 23-meter or 75-foot whale briefly washes up near a beach in Indonesia, though it is unclear how the enormous marine mammal died. Let's take a look.
Diduga paus biru kan dari bentuk ininya bagian bawahnya dari mulutnya sini bagian bawah. Ini kan dia terbalik telentang ini.
And check out foot golf, a novel fusion of two of the world's most popular sports that is growing in popularity and attracting new fans to the fairways. Let's take a look.
It's not simply whacking a ball and hoping it will get there. It's a very visual sport, a lot like golf. You have to visualize your shots and they generally work in your advantage. It's also the planning of the course. You have to have a plan A, how am I going to get this ball strategically? If that messes up, then you go to plan B and hopefully get back on track.
Next ball. Buat 6 dulu, ulang, test dulu.
And that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations. Stay updated about the ASEAN region. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.